Israel Update with Gadi'S and Mike Duran. Hello and welcome to Tablet's Israel Update. It's been 1 year and 113 days since this war began. It is now January 28th, 2025, and the 8th day to the Trump presidency. This show is produced by Yaakov Wilner. I'm Gadi Taub in Tel Aviv.
And I'm Mike Duran in Washington, D.C.
And we are
as sane as possible under the circumstances.
And it's becoming more and more difficult under these circumstances, especially in Israel, with the media orgy over the hostage deals. The media here is actually shutting down any ability to discuss anything rationally. We're just flooded with emotional images. It's maybe telling, Mike, that there is a new and emerging channel that runs news on Friday night. In Israel, the right-wing channels are shut down for Shabbat, so this is a novelty, and they have a right-leaning new show on Saturday nights, and they made a strategic decision not to devote their whole newscast to the hostages. And lo and behold, when the ratings came out, it turned out that their rating rose, actually. People feel they are force-fed with endless reels of something that we all obviously care very much about, but seem to have lost to the ability to discuss sanely. One of the parents of the returning hostages, Mr. Albag, Liri Albag's father, said that one day we will all settle accounts with those in the cabinet who voted against the deal. And with all compassion I can imagine what this man has been through with his daughter and how he feels about anything that jeopardized the deal. I don't think that he's reading the Israeli mood rightly. Israel, the Israeli public is sober, it's news savvy, and I think that they actually understand that there are grave, serious argument against these deals, especially now that so many murderers of so many Jews are being released. And actually, if there will be accounts to be settled, it may be with the media that's been basically amplifying the Hamas narrative, which the Hamas plan to stop the war using the hostages. So we'll see. But things are seething here. And
what's the name of the TV show that's the right-leaning TV show on Friday night?
It's the newscast of I-24. I-24 began broadcasting in Hebrew too. There's I-24 in French.
I didn't know it was broadcasting in Hebrew.
Yeah, it started broadcasting in Hebrew, and Naved Romi, a moderate secular right-wing anchor, is hosting Friday's show, and it seems like it's headed for success.
Oh, okay.
So why don't we start with the headlines?
All right. So, Gadi, on Saturday, President Trump removed the partial arms embargo on Israel that was in place under the Biden administration. He wrote on Truth Social that, quote, a lot of things that were ordered and paid for by Israel but have not been sent by Biden are now on their way. Prime Minister Netanyahu released a video thanking President Trump for his decision. Also on Saturday, the president caused much controversy when he said aboard Air Force One that he thinks that it would be a good idea for the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip to be moved to Egypt and Jordan while the Gaza Strip is being rebuilt. He spoke with Jordanian King Abdullah on Saturday and stated that, I said to him, I'd love you to take more because I'm looking at the whole Gaza Strip right now and it's a mess, a real mess. You're talking about 1.5 million people, and we just clean. You're talking about moving was the implication. 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing. Unquote. With Egypt and Jordan seemingly opposed to the idea, Trump has floated Indonesia and Albania as possible options for a destination for Palestinians living in Gaza. As an aside, Gadi, I've always wanted to go to Albania, but I never had a reason to go. This would connect the Middle East to Albania like it hasn't been since the early 19th century when the Albanian Muhammad Ali took over Egypt. Okay. The implementation of the first phase of the hostage deal has continued, with 4 female Israeli hostages having been released this past Saturday. However, the deal almost fell apart this week when Hamas did not release Arbel Yehud, whose release was previously agreed to in the ceasefire terms. Israel blocked Gazans from returning to the north of the Strip in retaliation until Hamas ultimately caved and promised to release Yehud with 2 others hostages later this week. Israel has released hundreds of Palestinian terrorists, including those serving life sentences in accordance with the agreement. On Sunday, the ceasefire up in the north with Hezbollah faced a test as Israel refused to withdraw its troops under the original 60-day deadline. The reason for this refusal was because the Lebanese army had not kept its side of the agreement to increase its presence in South Lebanon and ensure that Hezbollah remains weakened. The deadline was postponed until February 18th, with Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, that's Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, hailing the extension of the ceasefire and saying, quote, the Israeli government was great and they've done pretty good work over there in Lebanon, unquote. President Donald Trump, Gadi, has revoked the government security protection for former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and his top aide Brian Hook, both of whom have faced threats from Iran since they took a hardline stance on the Islamic Republic during Trump's first administration. And finally, Gadi, something that we need you to explain to us. The Supreme Court, that's the Israeli Supreme Court, has elected Yitzhak Amit as its president on Sunday evening. They did that all by themselves without Yariv Levin, the justice minister, and 2 other representatives of Netanyahu's coalition who were on the committee, on the selection committee. The selection of Yitzhak Amit took place without those representatives of the government present and participating in the vote. This is a very convoluted process, and we need you to explain it to us. Basically, it looks like Yitzhak Amit has elected himself president. Is that the right way to see it?
Yes, that's actually a very good way to put it. The issue is slightly more complicated, and of course, it's a sign of the times that the whole of the left is pretending that everything is fine, and only Yariv Levin, the Netanyahu's Minister of Justice and the author of the now defunct judicial reform, is at fault. But this is Amit basically crowning himself. So originally, since Yitzhak Amit is a very radical judicial activist and a radical leftist too, Yariv Levin was originally dead set against his appointment. This is a very critical appointment because the way things are run in this Supreme Court, the president of the Supreme Court appoints the panels to preside over the cases, and that very often decides the cases in advance.
So if you may have on the Supreme Court, you may have some conservative-leaning justices, but they don't. Well, justices with different points of view.
Activist judges, not conservative.
But the whole court doesn't decide on every case. So the president can impanel the judges on each case, and therefore basically determine it to be from the beginning.
Exactly. I wouldn't say there are any conservative judges, although we sometimes in Israel say so, especially on the left. I'd say that the center of the court is more or less Meretz, the party that
which no longer exists.
that didn't make it to pass the threshold to the parliament. So the court is very radical on the progressive side. So Yariv Levin was dead set against Yitzhak Amit. However, he decided to reach out, since this is a war, and try to find compromise, and ask the court and said that he would accept Judge Amit if they accept one really conservative judge. And he had two appointees. Both of them, interestingly, are conservative. Both of them are doctors in jurisprudence, and both of them are also Mizrahim, not a common thing on the court. But Amit refused to compromise about anything. So the minister...
Hold on. Let's take a step back and explain to us in constitutional terms or in process terms, Yariv Levin as justice minister, how does he have a say at all in what happens? What's the formal process?
That's a very good way of phrasing it, because if at all, very little. Unlike other countries where the appointment of Supreme Court justices who can exercise judicial review over legislation is a political process, here politicians have very little say, since the judges dominate the committee that appoints them. However, Yariv Levin sits at the head of this committee. He's the chair of this committee. So he said he will not convene the committee. And then the court did something illegal, basically, and ordered the committee to convene.
Improving your thesis that the Supreme Court is all powerful. The Supreme Court decided that Yariv Levin's decision not to convene the committee was unconstitutional or illegal, and convened it anyway. Is that what you're saying?
He ordered him to convene it, and at that point it was things were still up in the air. But then came a piece of investigative journalism that found that Judge Amit was indicted by the municipality.
Oh, you told us about this.
Tel Aviv. And I told this story at length. And not only that, he did not disclose this, and he presides in cases in which the Tel Aviv municipality is a plaintiff, or they may be on either side of the cases he presides over. So there is a conflict of interest, which he did not disclose. And then came rumors and investigations about other conflicts of interest. So Yariv Levin said, he turned to the Attorney General and said, well, we'll convene the committee after these things are investigated, at which point the Attorney General, which belongs to the same milieu, the same juristocracy that rules Israel, the Attorney General in Israel is an arm of the Supreme Court in the executive branch, and she said that the committee will have the facts before it and can decide for itself. So there would be no investigation, at which point Yariv Levin said, I'm not convening the committee. So the Supreme Court ordered the committee convened without its chair and with no authority in the law. And without Yariv Levin, without the Minister of Justice, it appointed Yitzhak Amit to be the president of the Supreme Court. By the way, Yitzhak Amit himself ruled that Gallant should be investigated for similar crimes. These are crimes of enlarging your own property.
For crimes that are similar to the ones that the Tel Aviv municipality is accusing.
That Amit himself has confirmed that he committed. So Gallant, according to the Supreme Court, could not be appointed, and he wasn't appointed to serve as the IDF chief of staff because of such infringements. But Amit, the president of the Supreme Court, has allowed himself to be appointed.
Well, he knows this. He knows the case very well, so he knows that they're not the same, right?
Exactly.
But you told us previously, I forgot this, that in the court documents with regard to his dispute with the Tel Aviv municipality, he uses his previous non-Hebraicized name, so yes, it's not easily identifiable as him. What is that name? Do you remember?
Gottfried. Yeah, and we showed this AI poster of the Godfather, Gottfried.
I hope there's some good jokes being told about all this. I mean, this is an insane insane kind of process that only happens in Israel.
And it ended up with Yariv Levin saying that he does not recognize Yitzhak Amit as the president of the Supreme Court. So we now have a Supreme Court president, whom the Minister of Justice will not recognize as a president. But the last thing I have to say about it is that you can see what happened to public discourse if you look at the Twitter feeds and the press. The left-wing press unanimously pretends that there is nothing wrong with the way Yitzhak Amit appointed himself, and they're digging their own grave. Because this is, if there was any adult in the room, they would tell Yitzhak Amit that this is what we call gol atzmi. We play soccer, so it's when
it's an own goal
yourself.
Yeah, own goal.
How do you call it?
What? Own goal.
So because you are undermining the public confidence in one of the most important institutions. It's already very low because our court is so political and so biased. Yitzhak Amit is already distrusted by many. You know that in the beginning of this war, there were a lot of appeals to the court regarding the conditions of internment for Nukhba October 7 perpetrators. And Amit said to them, this court will open its doors to you and your complaints. And this infuriated many Israelis. So he was already on the bad side of the right here, but now it's laughable. The whole thing.
It's hilarious. But when you say they're digging their own grave, are you sure about that? I mean, the amazing thing is that they are completely brazen, but half the population in Israel is supporting them, or they're making on some level. They're making a power calculation, and so far that calculation has not been wrong. Why do you think it's going to become wrong?
Because this structure is untenable, and I'll tell you something abstract and structural. This is a complete divorce of authority from accountability, and at one point it will erupt. My personal view is that this is going to be in the aftermath of this war, because consistently the court has been tying the hands of the IDF in its war in an attempt to find favor with the international norms, or the presumed international norms of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and it's been very accommodating to Nukhba terrorists, and it's like people are saying it's like water behind a dam. People are saying the water is rising and nothing is happening. Nothing is ever happening. They're brazen. The water keeps rising and nothing is ever happening. But the dam has a limit which will be reached at one point. And I can tell you what I think the at least the structure of the collapse will be. At one point, there would be right-wing politicians who would be brazen enough themselves to say what people attribute to President Andrew Jackson, who famously did not say, but apocryphally, it was said that he said to John Marshall, he said of John Marshall decided, let John Marshall implement. So at one point, someone will say that and will give them the finger. And then suddenly the whole structure, in my opinion, in my prediction, the whole structure will fall like a house of cards, because it only works if all authority only works if you believe in it. And it will reach a point when we will stop believing it. But we shall see that this is an ongoing drama in Israel.
Yeah. Let me tell you, you've given me an opening to tell you my favorite non-quote from Andrew Jackson, which I think I've said here before, but it can never be said too often. He didn't say this, but he should have. It's a damn feeble brain that can't think of more than one way to spell a word.
So who said that, do you think? Or who attributed it to him?
I don't know. But I like it. As somebody who's never been a particularly good speller, I took refuge in that quote.
I'm dyslexic, so it's even worse. And but you are generally of the Jackson persuasion, are you not?
He is my favorite president, bar none. But
and do you think Trump's populism follows the footsteps of Andrew Jackson's populism, as Stephen Bannon once suggested?
Sure. Yeah. Yes. I think Jackson created the modern presidency and appealed to the people over the heads of the elite. And he was staunchly nationalist as well. And I think he's totally in the Jacksonian mold. Bannon told Trump that. I don't know how much Trump has studied it himself. I'm sure he's gotten a lot of people have come and talked to him about it. There's a Jacksonian strain in American politics, which continues to this day. The historians in the Jacksonian period with President Polk in the 19th century. And so, but there is a strong Jacksonian strain that runs through the country's politics. It's not well represented in Washington, D.C. It doesn't have, there's a historian, I forgot his name, he wrote a book called The Jacksonian Persuasion.
Yeah, that was what I was alluding to. Yeah, you referred me to that book and I read it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's an interesting idea, the idea of a persuasion, because it's a set of attitudes that it's not an ideology. It's a set of attitudes about power and the attitudes about the purpose of the government, and so on. And I recognize it from the people I grew up around, including my parents.
Marvin Mayers.
Oh, is he he's the historian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the guy who's done the most to popularize the idea lately is my colleague here at Hudson, Walter Russell Mead, who comes from the South and is familiar with the people who think like this. Any politician worth his salt is aware of the Jacksonians, but they're not a self-conscious group. No, there's nobody out in the world that says I'm a Jacksonian. Although there probably is. There used to be a Jacksonian society, which was not insignificant. Harry Truman was a member. Harry Truman was a great fan of Jackson. He had
great president.
Here's an interesting connection between Israel and Harry Truman's Jacksonianism. He went around building statues of Jackson wherever he could, but he also had a little statuette of Jackson on his desk, and when Harry Truman's Jewish business partner, the guy that he had a haberdashery with, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but Truman got sick of the Zionists for a while, and he shut his door to any representative of Zionism coming to see him when he was president, and his business partner, again whose name is escaping me, was enlisted by Weizmann, the head of the Zionist organization, he was enlisted to go talk to Truman and get Truman to open his door and allow him to come talk to Truman about supporting Zionism. And so Truman's business partner went in to see him, and he said to him, Harry, your hero is Andrew Jackson, and he points at the statue on his desk, and he said, I have a hero. My hero is Weizmann. And imagine that Andrew Jackson asked you to go see someone and get them a meeting. What would you say? And that's the argument that won over Truman. And he said to him something like, "You bald son of a bitch. Okay, I'll do it."
Edward Jacobson was the name of the guy.
Edward Jacobson. That's right. So he said.
So I can't resist telling you my favorite Truman story, which I don't even know if it's apocryphal or not.
By the way, this one's true, 100% true. What I just told you.
Yeah. No. I know it's true. It's an emblem of the history of Zionism. It's we cherish it. But my favorite story is when I try to explain to students who don't understand American values. It's one thing amazing about Israel and America and the world is people adopt everything American, but they're not interested in American ideas and don't understand the actual mentality. And Americans don't export it with any explanation because they think it's self-evident. So they just come with their constitution and here, have our constitution for everyone. And then I try to explain to students that in the American instinct is that pragmatism and morality are one and the same. So the moral is also the pragmatic. And then I tell them this story about Harry Truman, about he said how he came into politics. So he was a pianist, as you probably know, and this was the Great Depression, and there were only two job openings for him in the little town in Missouri. One was to be a pianist at the whorehouse, and the other was to be the sheriff. and he chose the sheriff. And this is why. He said, if I fail as a sheriff, I can always be a pianist at the whorehouse. If I fail as a whorehouse, I'll never be a sheriff. So here's a moral tale from Harry Truman, whom I love. I love dearly.
So do I. I think he's my second favorite president, actually.
In my father's study, there was the Years of Decision, the 2 volumes of his memoirs. And my father always pointed to the name. He said, being a boss is about this. It's about making decisions. That is your job. Your job is not to waver and calculate all and study all the arguments. Your job is to cut, and the buck stops here. Anyway, let's go back to the Middle East. America is great fun. Let's Trump in the Middle East.
I do want to say one thing about America, though. You said it doesn't export ideas, but it does it. The wokeism is exported everywhere.
It exports ideas, but it doesn't export the study of its ideas, and it often doesn't study its own ideas. So if you go to history departments in America, it's a antiquarian branch that studies colonial American thought. So people no longer actually seriously read Jefferson or Madison or this is we now have bright new great ideas like wokeism and the rest of it. So where shall we start? Shall we start with the future of Gaza, because we had an argument about that two episodes ago?
Let's start by talking about Trump and Gaza, because we have the two biggest decisions or two big signals coming from Trump already. And they're kind of contradictory in my mind. One is, of course, the deal that he pushed on the Israelis and on Hamas as well. But we discussed this before. He basically endorsed Biden's framework for the hostage deal, and then now which looks like he was headed toward two-state solution, keeping Hamas in power, a two-state solution, and so on. But now we have this statement about moving people, transferring population from Gaza to elsewhere, to Albania, among other places. I think it's very interesting. I think it's as a strategy at this point, I think it's incoherent. It doesn't. These two things, they don't. They as far as I can tell at this point, they don't add up to a coherent approach to Gaza. I wouldn't want to draw any major conclusions from either one, but especially the second thing, the statement about transferring population, even if only temporarily. This shows, a Trump, the disruptor. I think. In very sharp relief, he's basically signaling that all of the basic solutions since the Oslo Accords, the basic framework is no longer the one that he's working from, because this is actually what he said was complete taboo as far as the entire international peace processing network is concerned with. There is this international network of Europe, every foreign ministry in Europe, virtually every foreign ministry in Europe, the American State Department, nearly every NGO that looks at the Middle East is in favor of peace processing, and none of them would ever say that we should actually move population out of Gaza.
In Israel, there was once a party that supported that, and it was beyond the pale.
Yes, these ideas are beyond the pale.
So, but many ideas have been cast beyond the pale, and usually against the Israeli side. One thing is that occupying territory is reversible in the Israeli Palestinian conflict. It's not like that necessarily in other conflicts around the world, but conflicts were solved with the annexation of territories and populations, and also moving populations. By the way, this has been taboo since Ben Gurion. Ben Gurion, when in the aftermath of the Peel Commission, such ideas were floated, Ben Gurion said, we will consider any proposals, but we will never suggest such a thing. So official Israel has never talked about transferring populations. This doesn't mean that this didn't happen. In the War of Independence, populations were expelled from the territory that Israel was originally planned for in this two-state solution, and then enlarged in the War of Independence. But that was despite scholars trying to prove that this was the original plan of Zionism to ethnically cleanse the land from Arabs. This has been proven quite conclusively by research to be a product of a war, and oftentimes decisions by local commanders. There is one incident in which, after a crisis of trying to impose a curfew in Ramle and Lod, it is alleged that Ben Gurion hinted at expelling a population with a movement of his hand. But that is all we have. A movement of his hand, according to Benny Morris, when Yitzhak Rabin and Yigal Allon asked him what to do with the population, allegedly he waved his hand eastward. But we have only the testimonies of the two other participants, and of course nothing written whatever. This is just to say that it's been considered beyond the pale by the Israeli leadership all throughout.
Yeah, so yesterday I was in a discussion with Gershona Cohen, retired IDF general, very interesting guy. I think you've interviewed him on your Hebrew podcast. And his assessment was that more important than the actual ideas that Trump is putting forth about transferring population is the mere fact that he's thinking outside of the received framework, and that this is a signal that very new ideas are now open to discussion. So, but at the same time, as I mentioned, the framework for the hostage deal, which is clearly very important to Trump, is reinforcing Hamas's power, at least temporarily, and weakening the Israeli position on the ground somewhat. So where this all leads, we're going to have to wait and see. I really don't know.
Do you want to try to finish this discussion so I can tell you that I have one more point to make?
What do you mean? You just
concluded the discussion.
I concluded. Yeah.
So I'll add another point and say that this whole talk of transfer, actually, Trump is talking about relocation, which is a different word. And what we fail to note when we use these terms is that there are a lot of Gazans who are looking to evacuate Gaza. So transfer is a reference to pushing out a population against its will. But there are many people wanting to either temporarily get out of the war zones or permanently just leave this hellhole and find a life somewhere else. And Hamas and Egypt and the other Arabs are keeping them there. So there's also a lot of hypocrisy around this, pretending that this is only like an evil solution by the terrible Orange Men.
I have a strong desire, as I mentioned, to go to Albania. So I'm hoping that this connection, we already have the connection between the MEK and Albania. This is this anti-Islamic Republic Iranian dissident group. They've now moved to Albania, and now we'll move some of the Palestinians there. This will give me, as a Middle East analyst, a legitimate reason to go to Albania, which is on my bucket list.
So hopefully you will open the Israel Update Bureau in Albania.
In Tirana. In Tirana.
Oh, Tehran is your real passion.
No, Tirana, the capital of Albania.
Sorry, I thought you were already moving to Tehran.
No, Tirana. I have such a desire to go there. Anyway, this has got nothing to do with anything.
and probably Ankara next. Okay, Mike. Shall we discuss the future of Gaza without the proposed relocation? My opinion is that eventually Trump will come around to eradicating Hamas. It seems like his whole way of thinking is not going to be hospitable to these terrorists. But who knows? And you said that was 2 weeks ago that we will have to develop a new Palestinian leadership in Gaza so that we can grant it or pass on the authority, the sovereignty, basically, in the Gaza Strip back to Palestinians.
No, that's not at all what I said.
That's not at all. Please do explain.
No. That's why I thought it was interesting. I got a lot of hate mail from from our loyal followers. Not hate mail.
I also got a lot of mail. One was disappointed with your honorary Israeli ship title and said goys will be goys.
Yeah. I got a lot of that. I got the goys will be goys, but also, you're a left-wing galutnik, because for all those people who assume I'm Jewish, I'm just a typical galut Jew who doesn't understand, and a naive American. I got the number of emails I got saying, "You naive American, you don't understand that jihad is the heart of every Palestinian beats for jihad and raping Jews and so on." And I found all of this beside the point. Actually, I'm making a very, very simple point. I read Middle Eastern politics militarily. And I try to think about it strategically. The strategic enemy of Israel, the number one strategic enemy of Israel and of the United States is Iran. Everything else is secondary. Iran drew Israel into a war of attrition. This is a war that Israel never prepared for and was not prepared for. Israel's not set up. The military and the society are not set up to fight wars of attrition. And so they need to have. Ben-Gurion wanted wars, correctly wanted Israeli wars to be short, to be fought on the enemy territory, and to end decisively. And that this is because of the structural imbalances between Israel and the Arabs. Israel built a military that could not handle the drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, and other disruptive military capabilities that Iran distributed to all of its proxies, including Hamas. And it activated all of its proxies simultaneously. So what Israel needs in Gaza, whether Gaza has Gazans in it or non-Gazans, it needs a Gaza in which there is no force that can act as Iran's proxy on the ground. In order to do that, Israel has to do two things, which it has officially said. It's going to destroy Hamas as a military organization, and it's going to destroy Hamas as a governing agent. It has done the former, more or less. It has not done the latter, and I have not seen any plan about how to do the latter. And this is all I'm saying. You have to destroy it as a governing institution. The political network has to be destroyed. That means you have to starve it of resources and you have to dismantle it. You cannot do that simply with Jewish forces. You have to develop proxies on the ground, Palestinian Gazan proxies that are willing to displace Hamas. This is possible. This is doable, but there has to be a plan and it has to be implemented.
And you also said that they can be re-educated, which I think provoked a lot of the ire against your.
Of course, they can be re-educated. Of course, they can be. This is silly. This is silly, and you're silly. This is like look. You have the same human material in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria, and in Jordan. Jordan is a majority Palestinian society. The Jordanians, the average Palestinian in Jordan hates Israel. They hate Israel, and they were not disturbed. They were not disturbed by October 7. But they are not They are not allowing themselves to be used as instruments of Iran's strategy. So if Jordanian Palestinians can be not proxies of Iran, then Gazans can be not proxies of Iran. And we've known even in the history of Gaza, it wasn't that long ago. I'd been to Gaza myself. There was a time when the Gazans were not all organized to kill Israelis. The fact is that Israel allowed Hamas to take over every corner of that society and create this structure.
So I can sharpen the disagreement. First of all, Iran is not our only strategic problem. The Palestinians are a major strategic problem to Israel. Secondly, the fact that these people have been programmed to and educated in a theology of hate from basically kindergarten is not going to be easy to deprogram. Thirdly, Hamas is not the only indoctrinator. The perpetrators of the October 7 massacre were brought up on books by the Palestinian Authority, which I quoted to you. Fifthly, is it fourthly or fifthly? Where are we? You underestimate religion, and not for the first time, which is surprising because I'm secular and you are religious, and so maybe you tend to confuse your own humane religion with theirs. And lastly, behind your speech is the Obama assumption that at the end of the day, everybody wants to have a decent job, put food on the table for their families, and have a safe environment to grow their children.
I didn't say any of these things.
No, you didn't say.
I didn't say any of these
that's
things.
The background. That's the background.
No, it's all nonsense. You want me to take them apart one by one?
Please do.
I did. Or do you want to continue? You can continue a little bit before. But I have an answer to every one of those things you just said. Go ahead.
No, you don't. But go ahead and try.
Of course I do.
You've already said all this.
No. You're. This is fascinating because we know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't understand you don't understand me, Gadi. You don't understand me. so look.
But
number one,
I'll say for myself that nobody.
Number one. You said I didn't write them down, so we have to go there. Number one, you said Iran is not our only problem.
Mm-hmm.
True. I didn't say it was your only problem. I said it was the top priority. It's the urgent priority. Israel, this war is an existential war for Israel, not because there's a bunch of nasty jihadis coming out of Gaza, but because of what Iran was able to do to create this whole ring of fire around Israel. The number one priority right now is to destroy that ring of fire. Nothing else, everything else pales in consideration. And you don't have an infinite amount of time, an infinite amount of resources, or an infinite amount of capabilities to do this. Has to be done today. So stay focused on what is really important, and don't go down a lot of stupid rabbit holes. If I talk to another Israeli who starts talking to me about Qatar, the problem is Qatar, I'm going to blow my brains out, right? The problem is not Qatar. The problem is Iran. Stay focused on it. If I have another Israeli telling me Turkey, the Sultan, the new Ottoman Empire, I'm going to go crazy. The problem is Iran. Take care of the Iran problem. That's number one. Okay. So what?
Lovely tie, by the way.
Oh, you know what this is.
I know this time. We're not going to do this again. You'll have to wait for the program to learn the story of the tie.
People know.
Mike, you consistently, we understand this. But
you just said to me there are other problems.
There are other problems, and we are not going to have another chance to solve them, and they can be existential too. So we have to fully occupy the Gaza Strip. There is no other way to root out completely.
Occupy
Hamas
it. Go ahead. I'm not saying don't occupy. I'm saying
not proxies, not Palestinians, the Israeli IDF.
occupy it.
And the reason that you are wrong.
I say don't occupy?
Can I answer?
I said destroy Hamas as a political organization. You have to do it.
And then completely rule the territory, because Hamas is ingrained in every child's brain in this region. And it is not that Hamas is a tyranny ruling over some innocent population.
You still have to root out Hamas. You have to do this. Fine.
Absolutely. Stop saying that we didn't have a plan. The thing is, we now know that the reason that we hadn't taken hold of the territory is because Yitzhak Levin and his whole progressive brass of the IDF has been dragging its feet, and more evidence emerged. The government repeatedly told the IDF, take control of the food supply. All this humanitarian aid that the Biden administration has been forcing us to give our enemies instead of making them surrender, all this aid was distributed by Hamas. And the IDF kept saying that it doesn't know how to do this. And when the idea of a complete military administration, like MacArthur in Japan, was floated here, what the army said is it will require 4 divisions and 5 billion shekels. And that is bollocks. It can be administered with a smaller force and with much less expense. So the idea that we will use Palestinian proxies to solve this problem temporarily is just, I'm sorry, I can't accept it, Mike.
So look, you're still arguing against something I didn't say. I have no idea. You may be right about the government gave the order to the IDF didn't carry it out. I don't know that. I suspect strongly suspect that the answer is actually much more complex than that, and that the government decided that it did not want to be an occupying power because of the fight it was having with the Biden administration. And it
couldn't say what it really wanted to do. That's clearly the case.
I don't know. I said something very simple. There is no clear plan to remove Hamas as the governing organization. If there's a plan, it hasn't been implemented. Until that begins, there's not going to be a solution to this problem.
Until what begins? What begins?
Removing Hamas activists as in positions of political power in Gaza.
Of course, we're not arguing about that. We're arguing.
That's all I've ever said. This is all I've ever said. You and the people who are criticizing me in our comments have seen some I don't know, Oslo plan that I have in my mind. I'm saying something. I am looking at this from a military point of view. You have to take this thing apart, and you have to start taking it apart now. Unfortunately, they should, as the plan for the now that allows the people to go back to the north doesn't involve rooting out the Hamas activists from among them, which should be part of the plan. Yeah. This is the most disturbing aspect to me about the hostage deal, is that it allows Hamas to return to the north and to continue to control the population in the north. So, ideally, what you would want to do is vet the people so that you have, and this is where you and I disagree, is that I say there are people in Gaza who are not Hamas activists, and that's just a fact. That's just a fact. And if you don't see that, you're just not reading the landscape correctly.
And what accounts for your correct reading? What is your conviction based on?
Because Hamas is an organization. It's an organization. It has limited resources.
Hamas is an idea. Haven't you heard?
It's an idea. Yeah, I know. And
it's an ideology. It's an ideology.
It's an ideology. It's an ideology. You know what? Nazism was an ideology. It was instilled in every German kid, right? And
Hamas is not. And the version of jihad. And the version of jihad that Hamas holds is not like the Nazi indoctrination. It's
sure it is. Yeah, sure it is.
In what? In what way is it different?
No, I said it's similar.
Okay. So
I'm saying we have Germany since 1945 and Germany before 1945.
Yeah, but
we have Japan. We had Japan with the kamikazes who were killing themselves. Japan before and Japan after. There's
but we have the Palestinian Authority at least since the mid '90s. That's much longer than the Nazi control of Germany, and we have the Muslim Brotherhood long before that. And here is where we disagree. No, because you're pretending we're not disagreeing,
we are disagreeing. But we are disagreeing. But
you said that ideally we should vet the Hamas operatives from the general population returning to Gaza. I don't think that's what we should do. I think we should not let anyone return to the north of Gaza and annex it because their theology does not take death into account. If you read Hassan al-Banna, and if you read what they are brought up in, if you read the son of Hamas, and if you read anything about Hamas theology, then you know that death is nothing to them. They talk about the work of death. It's a death-worshipping cult in which when you are killed, you go to heaven and you are a martyr. That's their religion. And the only price that will deter them in the future is losing Waqf land, holy land, not desecrated, the other way around.
Consecrated
land to Islam. So this is what we
This is a disagreement. And here are the two major points.
And it runs to the fact that you don't take religion seriously, Mike.
This is so silly. This is so
true.
No, it's not true at all. Because you are secular, you don't understand religion. So anyway, here's the major disagreement. Go ahead. I don't look. I will be delighted if Israel annexes the north of the Gaza Strip. I'd be delighted. It wouldn't bother me in the least. I would like to see, it wouldn't bother me if Israel decided to build settlements there. I don't think they're going to. And I think I would not advocate it because I think it would add a needless disagreement with the American government, including with the Trump government, if Israel were to do that. But if it did it, I would not be disturbed. But I do not kid myself for a second that thinking that annexing the north of the Gaza Strip solves your problem, because you still have millions of Gazans that are living in Gaza, whatever the boundaries of Gaza are, and they're still going to be organized by Hamas, which is an ally of Iran. So the problem, you've just reconfigured the problem. You haven't solved it.
That's a ridiculous way to present my position. Excuse me.
You made an argument that you're going to deter these guys. You're going to by taking territory from them. I don't believe that will deter them.
Absolutely.
I don't agree. I don't agree. You're not going to deter them.
You don't agree because you think in American terms, and you do not understand that we have to exact a very, very severe price in their terms if we want to deter them from ever going down that path again.
You have to destroy them.
I'm not saying let me finish. I'm not saying that this is enough. I'm just saying it's necessary. That's not
do it. I don't think you're going to solve your problem. Look, Iran, look at what Iran and Russia and Assad did to Syria. The slogan of the Syrian regime during the civil war
was as sane as possible under the circumstances.
Was Assad or we'll burn the country down. They were willing to destroy the whole country. Iran is quite comfortable being the lord of the rubble. And the thing is that once you turn a country to rubble, and people are impoverished, you always have somebody that you can pay to send off your drones, ballistic missiles, rockets, whatever. So the military problem is the primary problem that has to be solved. And you don't have an infinite amount of time to do it. You don't have infinite resources to do it. You have to suppress that, all of the organizations that can ally with Iran in that area, and you have to do it in relatively short order. This is all I'm saying. This is all I'm saying. And all the stuff you're talking about, however deeply inculcated this is in the hearts of the people, however much they believe that holding on to territory is important or whatever, none of this solves that problem. It is absolutely secondary, tertiary from with respect to the big strategic problem.
Well, I don't think I disagree with that. I'm just saying that this is an existential problem too, and that temporary solution that you are suggesting is going to let this problem reemerge.
I'm not talking about a temporary solution. I'm talking about destroying them. I'm talking about killing them. I'm talking about separating them from the population. You have this idea that the entire population is Hamas. This Hamas is an organization, just as the military said correctly.
Yeah, again,
Hamas is a military.
There is an ideology here, and it's a Nazi-like ideology.
Who cares? Who cares? Militarily, you have to look at organizations and destroy them. Destroy the organization. There is an organization. It doesn't matter how popular or unpopular it is.
Your path, Mike, leads to another version of the Palestinian Authority. And it will be another murderous version of the Palestinian Authority. This is why we need the occupation. But I'm going to have to close this discussion because we are
what path did I lay out that leads to the Palestinian Authority? I'm saying start destroying the political organization. Start it now.
Yeah, have I ever disagreed with that? I just said it's not enough.
You're disagreeing with me now.
What do you mean? Did I say that we don't need to dismantle Hamas? Are you kidding me? Did I say that? I just said it's not enough.
This whole argument began because I said, you know what? You have to start dismantling Hamas.
This whole argument began when I said that's not enough. That's the argument. It is not enough because you conveniently bypass the fact that you keep arguing that there is an innocent non-Hamas population there, which we can work with, and there is no such thing. We have to administer the territory.
You're telling me that every person in Gaza is ready to pick up a gun and shoot at Israel?
No.
Okay, there we go.
No, I'm telling you.
That's all.
No. What I'm telling you is that these terrorists that filmed themselves murdering babies on GoPro understood that posting this on social media will get them prestige and acclaim in their own society, and that you don't take that fact seriously, and I do.
I take it seriously. I don't. It has nothing to do with the immediate tasks that Israel needs to perform in order to assure its security. The idea though that because jihad, slaughtering of Jews is popular among Gazans means that we can't destroy Hamas as an organization.
I never said that. I never said that.
Then we're in total agreement. Yeah. Because you keep telling me. I'm telling you, there's a difference between a Hamas activist and a non-Hamas activist, and you got to get rid of the activists.
Ladies and gentlemen, all you blaming Mike for things he never said in the comments, just listen again. It's not what he said. He didn't say what he said. Mike, let's. I'm
totally consistent. Go back and look at what I said.
Exactly. Okay, so we all misunderstand you. We stand corrected. Let's go to the fun part of the fun part.
I'm mystified by all this. I really am. I feel like what I'm saying is very simple.
Yeah. Well, apparently
I don't want to let it go because I find this ridiculous. But anyway, go ahead. We'll go on.
So we have very little time because you have to tend to.
Oh, I do. We have a few minutes. Let's skip the reader's views and the dumb mistake and just quickly talk about where Trump is going.
Didn't we? Okay, let's do that.
No, because we never talked about. Well, I put into the news the Brian Hook thing. The president pulled the the president excommunicated Brian Hook, who was his Iran envoy in the first term.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled the security detail from Brian Hook, also from Pompeo and from John Bolton and so on. But this is being read this is causing a lot of disturbance in the pro-Israel community. What are you giggling about here?
I'm just thinking if
you want to keep fighting about this fight.
No. I'm just thinking, my job is I do television for many, many years. And I'm telling you, our viewers and listeners are having real trouble shifting gear to this suddenly level-headed argument that you are making. And I also try to concentrate. What's
the problem we're having here? I don't understand. I really don't.
The problem is the emotional tone of the program. It's
so do you want me to yell at you some more?
Yeah. Why don't you yell this next argument too? No, just
Gadi, God damn it! What?
No, I think we just helped them make the shift. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. I'm not quite following, but okay. Anyway, again, I don't understand what you're talking about, but that doesn't matter. I don't need to. So at the same time, the Trump Department of Defense is being filled with restraintists who are clearly egged on or supported on the outside by Tucker Carlson. Restraintists being those who believe the United States doesn't have vital interests in the Middle East, and some of whom are clearly making the argument that Israel is dragging the United States into conflicts that are not in its interest. Their worldview of the restraintists is really within the MAGA world, as I've said here a couple times. It's really very similar to the Obama-Biden worldview. We can cut a deal with Iran. There's no real conflict between the United States and Iran. Israel's dragging us into the conflict with Iran. We can we can negotiate with Iran, and we should not support Israel in its aggressive wars. And the combination of these things, because Brian Hook, who's been excommunicated by Trump, was an Iran hawk. And so clearly the restraintists put a knife in his back somehow. We don't know exactly how that happened, but I think it is correct to see that there's a move after the initial picks by Trump for his cabinet, which were all very pro-Israel or overwhelmingly pro-Israel and in favor of a pressure campaign, a very serious pressure campaign against Iran. A lot of the second-tier picks are much more cautious to those ideas, if not hostile to them, and so this is causing a lot of consternation in the pro-Israel.
Where do you think Trump will eventually land? Because obviously there are two different strands in the way he's playing it now, and that may not be an accident, right?
I don't think it's an accident at all. But the way it's kind of shaken out is that the Defense Department is looking like it's owned by the restraintists, with the partial exception of the Secretary of Defense himself, Pete Hegseth. The White House looks like a kind of traditional conservative internationalist republicanism of the kind that I represent. And then the State Department is kind of in the mushy middle between the two. It kind of positions the State Department. Marco Rubio will play a key role here in helping Trump to turn these different inclinations into a coherent vision, which we don't have yet. If you ask me, I think that it is going to be, we're going to, in the end, when the dust settles, we're going to be reasonably happy with where Trump comes out. But as you suggest, your question suggests, it really all comes down to the personality of the president and what he wants. He wants a variety of ideas, and he's gonna push things wherever he wants them to go.
But maybe this means maximum pressure without military pressure, because
I think
restraint is in the Defense Department and activism is in the White House. That might mean a return to the Iran policy of the first Trump administration.
That wouldn't be surprising at all. It wouldn't surprise me if he got into a serious negotiation with the Iranians, who are on a charm offensive right now, trying to rope him into a.
Have they stopped trying to assassinate? Americans.
They never did that. Gadi, what are you talking about? This is that's a Zionist that's a Zionist lie. Yeah. No, but Prime Minister Netanyahu is reportedly negotiating or discussing, suggesting to the Trump team that he come to the United States sooner rather than later, hoping for a visit by the end of February, possibly as early as next week even. But nothing has been. We don't have any details on that yet. That meeting will be very, very important for getting the first clear signals from Trump about his attitude toward military action against Iran's nuclear program.
So finally, the matter that we have been discussing here might be coming to a head. We on Israel Update will, of course, cut through the media bias for you and also be as sane as possible under the circumstances.
Apparently today we didn't do such a good job on the sanity front, or did we? I don't know.
I felt it was amazingly refreshing to air some aggression, but I'm Israeli. So it's been fun wrestling with you, Mike, and
it has been fun. I enjoyed airing. You remember Festivus, the airing of grievances? Do you know what I'm talking about from Seinfeld?
No. I'm not a Seinfeld fan.
What? You're not a Seinfeld fan?
No, not really. No.
I can't believe that. I have to rethink everything now. Your attitude toward Gazans, your attitude toward Gazans, I can forgive, but I can't forgive the fact that you don't like.
But you give away all your cards now because your attitude toward Gaza is clearly Seinfeld-ish. I'm more on the Monty Python side. So,
all right. So I want to. The thing that Trump didn't talk about is transferring the Gazans to Greenland.
Yeah. Oh wow. Maybe that's a secret plan that we just haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
Some of them have never seen snow. That can be refreshing. Mike, thank you very much for suffering my Israeli abrasiveness and matching it with some surprising American abrasiveness of your own. We will see if this develops into a fist fight, since I'm going to be visiting Hudson very soon, and there we will.
Oh yeah. We'll take this.
I think
we'll take this to the octagon.
Yeah, and so you need to find a referee, maybe someone from FDD, and I don't want it to be someone from your organization, and I can't bring my own. All right,
those guys are against me though at FDD on this issue. I gotta. I'll bring somebody from Cato.
Thank you very much for bearing with us in this long conversation, which I hope was also informative. We will be here next week in another episode of Israel Update.